Do you ever feel as if your to do list runs you instead of the other way around? Without a strategic plan, it's easy to stay in reaction mode, spending your time on tasks that keep you busy, but not necessarily moving you forward. Strategic planning isn't just for large organizations. It's a necessity for solo entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders, small businesses, everyone, if you ask me, if you want to build with purpose and not pressure. Today, on episode 36, which is part four of Design 2025 Lead, Build, Thrive, let's take a look at what happens when you don't operate from a strategic plan and why crafting one now can help you shift from survival mode to sustainable growth. And when I say that, I'm talking about scaling efforts in a way that ensures that your future operations remain manageable, aligned with your core values, and are adaptable to changes. Let's talk about how strategic planning sets you up to focus on what matters and move with clarity. And if you're ready to take this even further, let's also explore what it looks like to work with me as your growth strategist. Let's go. Welcome to Impact Innovators with Felicia Ford, where we dive into the strategies that empower changemaker brands to leave a lasting legacy. Think of this podcast as your audio playbook for meaningful action. What's possible when thought leaders, disruptors, and pioneers align to share their journeys? I'm Felicia Ford, your host, bringing together the brightest minds and the most groundbreaking ideas to help you drive change, navigate through the sticky stuff, and elevate your brand. Whether you're tackling funding hurdles, looking for growth strategies, or seeking the perfect balance between profit and purpose, we've got you covered. Stay tuned and be a part of a movement that's setting new benchmarks in how we think about progress, community, and doing. Let's innovate, impact, and inspire. Hey, friends. I am super excited to chat with you today because I had a impromptu meet and greet with one of my girlfriends today at one of my other girlfriends' establishments. It was such a great reunion. And, when you have great people surrounding you, you can feel the energy. You can just be in this incredible space of creativity and idea generation. And so it fits today because we're talking about the art of strategic planning. And I probably am going to focus more so on some of the structure of strategic planning because the art of it takes a little bit more time to dive into, but we'll get to some of that as well. And it sounds simple, but I know that for some people it can, be a little bit overwhelming. And so we're going to not be available to that overwhelm because strategic planning can completely transform how you show up for your business or your mission, right? If you've ever felt like your work is running you ragged, which I know is possible when you're in crisis work or when you're in social impact work, and that you're so busy keeping up with everything that it's hard to see the bigger picture. You're definitely not alone there, right? Like, I mean, business ownership has been romanticized a lot online, but those of us who've been, plowing through these fields for quite some time, we know it takes work. It takes effort. It takes patience. It takes agility, right? And that's the truth. But without a clear plan, it's easy to spend your time reacting instead of leading. And that's especially true for those of us working well, I'm not a solo entrepreneur anymore, but especially true for those who are working as small teams with big work, or if you're leading a nonprofit without planning, this framework in place. So, while we're going to again talk about the art of strategic planning, I'm also going to share with you why planning matters and how it can make the difference between surviving in your business and thriving in your business. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite things to do. I'm the growth strategist, right? Like strategy is in my brand. It is one of the things that I would say came to me as a skill by experience, as a skill by default. I was a coach at one point, and coaching is a different discipline. There's another episode that you can go back to that shares the difference between a coach, a mentor. Um, let's see, I'm looking for it for you. Um, Episode 15, who can help you grow? A mentor, coach, consultant, or a strategist. So if you're, wondering what's the difference between those, you can go back to listen to that in episode 15. But we want to talk about now. Usually I have 4 points today. I have three, and we're going to start with point number one, why a strategic plan is essential. So when there's no strategic plan, every task might feel like a priority, like right now, and you might be stuck in this constant state of reactivity. Every new project, every opportunity or fire might take away, energy from the bigger goals that really move your mission and your work forward. And with a plan, it's easier to move lighter and, see your progress and really even, take some of your time back. And what I mean by that is, you're not, you know, stuck at your desk and you're not stuck in meetings. All right. So the truth is, clarity comes from structure. Your strategic plan helps you to focus on the right priorities. It helps you to align with your efforts, your values, and be able to say no to distractions that aren't moving you in the direction that you want to go in. And we know that when efforts are deliberate, then you create the space to grow. I just want you to remember here that forward movement requires intention, clarity, structure. You have to know what you're aiming for, how to get there, and who can help you along the way. Right? We like those visions that are so big that we can't do them by ourselves. Now, if you're wondering what it really looks like to shift from being reactive to leading with a strategic plan, I want to share with you an example from a recent conversation. If you'll remember, Tanya Barnes, the executive director of Beulah Safe Haven, joined us back in episode 30. And she talked about how working with me transformed the way that she approached her work. Now, before we started, Tanya was doing amazing work. She shares her story again in episode 30. But, she was caught between daily fires and what it meant to build the foundation for a nonprofit. And she has this incredible vision and, these big picture ideas that some had not yet gotten off of the ground. And again, she was doing incredible work, but she also felt like she was always trying to catch up, that there was always more to do, that, she had people to talk to, she had events to go to, she had grants to write. She had to create programming for the girls that are in her program. But during our time together, what I did with Miss Tanya was sit down and create this customized strategy that gave her some structure, it gave her some clarity that she needed to know so that she knew exactly what to focus on, in what order to focus on, and who else to bring into her space to help her make this vision a reality, right? So, and I could only do that by working with her to understand what mattered most to her and what mattered most to their mission. And then, I created a plan that was achievable. And for quite some time, I worked with her one to one in nailing that out, right? And, we just talked about it in episode 35, where I said, personal growth is going to propel your professional growth. And, when you want growth in your business, whether you're a Fortune 500, a 100, or aspiring to be, think about when people hire CEOs. Think about even, sports. Coaches win games. Coaches who win games get paid more, right? Players who are phenomenal get paid more. It's the same thing with our businesses, in our brands. Okay. So Tanya grew exponentially while working with me, and she's always been this incredible person. I just was, blessed to be able to walk alongside her for a period of time and help pull out some of those things that she wasn't able to see herself, right? And so her story is just a really, I think, one of my favorite examples of how having the right framework and support allows you to stop spinning your wheels and to start making progress where it counts, right? So, yes, we needed to get things done, but it also was okay, let's focus on these particular things at this particular time with the plan that worked for her. Okay. So let's look at step number two, the elements of a strategic plan that works. Okay. So, what makes a strategic plan effective? The focus here is giving yourself a framework to follow so that when things shift, you're ready to adjust with, again, intention. I say that a lot because we have to have a purpose of why we're working towards a thing, right? So I'm going to just share with you a couple of components. But number one, you want to have clarity on your mission and your long term goals. What are you working toward? And why does it matter? Okay. Because that's the gauge that we can filter lots of things through when it comes to making decisions about what we do, where we do it, and who we do it with. Number two, structure that breaks your plan into actionable steps. What needs to happen in the next 3 months, 6 months, or a year? And then, of course, you break those things down. But as I mentioned in last week's episode, where we talked about MTO goals and fast goals, that's where this will come in, right? So, what needs to happen in the next 3 months? And it might even be, the next month, the next week, okay? But we want to think big right now so that we can get granular later. Number three, you want to have a system for reviewing and adjusting your plan as things change because things change. If we've learned nothing else these last 4 years, we've learned that things change and they change very quickly. No plan stays static. So you want a way to stay on track while remaining flexible. And your strategic plan is going to require you to make deliberate decisions about your time, your energy, and your resources. I would say an example for me would be that last year, I would say 2023, I approached my trademark attorney and I applied for this trademark. And unfortunately for me, I put in the investment of time and money for this particular trademark and learned that someone else had already beat me to it. Okay. So I had to change my mind. It doesn't mean that I don't still run the program. It doesn't mean that, we just hard stop. It means I got to get creative and come up with another name and keep it going. Okay. So I would say I think one of the other examples that I'd like to share with you about how strategic planning can transform your organization would be my work with Spark, which was previously known as Community Solutions. They approached me with a focus on increasing sales and marketing. But after, diving a little bit deeper, I realized that their brand no longer reflected who they had become or where they were heading. Well, this was in conversation with my brand strategist who we had on team at the time. So their internal identity had shifted, but their operations, their culture, and their messaging hadn't really caught up with who they'd become, right? So our collaboration and our work together began with rebranding that went beyond, a new logo or a new tagline. Um, I loved working with them in this process. I know it was difficult for them, and I'm saying this understanding that if you are considering, a rebrand or, do you need to rebrand? I want to be transparent with you, right? Like it is an identity shift. It's not talking about the admin parts of it, but how you behave, how you think, how you act, and how your team behaves, thinks, and acts. And this is an organization that I know they probably had at least 50 to 60 employees. So this work, right? This strategic planning, this growth strategy, The work extended to building internal processes that match their goals. And, we wanted to create efficiency. We wanted to clarify roles within the organization. And once these brand and this structure was aligned, we were able to develop a plan for them that helped them to reach their next level of growth, right? We don't have to reach 10 levels of growth, my friends. Your strategic plan, you have this vision, right? You have a vision of 5 years, 10 years. But your plan itself, when you're working it, you just need to get to the next level and let the next one come after you sustain that first level. Okay. But the work that we did together, I wanted to really reiterate the fact that I wanted to help them get to a place of striving for short term outcomes, right? Like, striving for the short term outcomes, but also really reinforcing that. And so we equip them with, alignment with their newly defined purpose, their newly defined values, their newly defined vision statement, to help them to prepare to grow in a way that made sense for who they had become. Okay. And if you are, taking notes as you're going along, I want you to also consider that your strategic plan should answer, I would say, some three simple questions. Okay, number one, what are your priorities? Number two, what systems need to be in place in order to sustain these priorities? And then number three, I think, who can I collaborate with or bring on board to help move this forward? And when you have an organization with a huge team of people, it's going to take a team of people. It's going to take, 8, 9 months, 12 months even. I actually would have liked to have been on board with them for 18 to 24 months because that type of systemic change requires some ongoing support. But I'd like to again be transparent with you in what you want to consider when it comes to big change, right? All right. So number three, which is another one of my favorite things to do. In fact, October is the time that I typically do this. Actually, mid-September to October. October, I'm finishing my operational calendar. This is where you're making the plan real, right? So if you've been doing vision board parties, if you have had these planning sessions with your teams or you've participated in them with your goal friends, your girlfriends, this is the part that is most difficult for most people, okay? This is where most leaders struggle and it's in the implementation. We won't get into the neuroscience or the psychology of habits, but I mean, I love to talk about that. um, Creating a plan is one thing, but bringing it to life requires an operational calendar. Okay. Some solo entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders aren't used to working from an operational calendar. And, I want to say, like, this is where things get real, right? Your calendar helps you to break your plan into these manageable steps and gives every task a place, right? I think I mentioned on either episode 35 or 34, um, what you could use, what is it called, Asana, as a tool to do this, right? But you're not left wondering what to do next because your roadmap is already there. And when you have a system in place, it's easier to avoid burnout and to stay focused on what matters, right? So I map out my year every year during Q4. It's something that I do for my nonprofit, my business, and even my personal life. And if I, even if I don't act on every idea that I write down, the process gives my brain a sense of direction. I have something to work towards. So when I know where I want to go, my daily actions naturally align with that vision, even without conscious effort. It's how I manage my energy because I manage my energy. I secondarily manage my time. Okay. But that kind of strategic mapping ensures that time and energy flow towards what matters most. Um, I would say, as a business or a nonprofit leader, understanding your sales cycle or your cycles in general is crucial. It's critical. You want to stay aware of your sales seasons, RFP deadlines, grant cycles, buying patterns, fundraising season, things that are recognized by the general public or mainstream media, even, and how it affects you. I know some organizations, businesses are affected by when schools open and close, when vacations are happening, when there are sales happening in retail spaces, definitely, right? Technology, because everything that you do has its own rhythm. Everything that happens outside of you has its own rhythm. And it's especially critical for you if you are dependent on, city government budgets, or you're dependent on what happens with, Medicaid and Medicare. Um, in episode, let's see, 19, I believe, from Anonymous to Anomaly, Deanna mentioned an editorial calendar. And, I work with something similar and I call it an operations calendar, but that's one of the, I would say, top three things that um, working with me as your growth strategist, I get right in there. I get right in there and it's like, let's go, my friend. The energy is there, the plan is there. Here are the things, here's the time when you're doing the things, and we rock and roll. Okay. This calendar becomes the foundation that drives momentum throughout the year. And I hope that you notice that I never say anything about motivation, right? Motivation is a feeling, it's not dependable. But momentum happens whether you feel like it or not, because momentum happens when you take action, right? And it doesn't mean that you finish something. Eventually you'll finish it, but momentum is the goal here. It helps you to pace yourself. It helps you to protect your time and your resources and maintain clarity, so you know exactly where to focus at any given moment. Um, I can help you, create your operations calendar that works not just for your organization, but also for your life, right? Helping you balance your personal and your professional goals. All right, friends. So here is your challenge. I would like for you to consider blocking out some time this week for a strategic planning session, even if it's just an hour. You want to think about what systems you need in place and what kind of support will help you move forward. The timing couldn't be better because our fireside chat is happening this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. You want to join me there so we can unpack these ideas, reflect on your progress, and answer your questions in real time. Remember, you can register on our event page, media.feliciafordandco.com/events. And before I go, I am so excited about, like, I can't even explain this because it feels like an outer body experience, that Strategic Edge Power Moves for Businesses and Nonprofits magazine, the Golden Hour edition, is going to be available to you in a very short period of time. I have the joy, honor, and privilege of connecting with over 20 changemakers from across the United States, all sharing their vision, their mission, their stories, how they've overcome things, celebrated things, why they're doing what they're doing. And these are some very much so accomplished change makers. And you are invited, my friend, to join the waitlist at media.feliciafordandco.com/power moves. And you want to click on the Golden Hour waitlist so that you have premium, I would say, first access to see this. Now, share this episode with your business bestie, with your team, and I'm going to see you this Thursday at the Fireside Chat. Until then, keep leading, keep building, and keep thriving. Hey, Changemaker, real quick before you go, if today's episode helped you in some way, the best way to thank me is to head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the channel, and leave a review. I'd also love to connect with you over on social. You can find me at Friends Call Me Fee. Until next time, keep changing the game.